As Brisbane locks down until at least Monday night, it may be longer, there are new protocols in place to force returning travellers to Australia to prove they are COVID-19 negative. Now, to get us up to date with what transpired from today's special virtual National Cabinet meeting, I caught up with reporter Trudy McIntosh just before coming to air. Trudy, one of the most important outcomes to come out of National Cabinet this afternoon was this redefining of what a hotspot is. In the context of the Greater Brisbane area, it's about the strain of the virus we're talking about, right?
Yeah, the real fear here was the growing threat posed by that mutant strain of COVID-19 that we've seen in the UK and what has been detected in Queensland, that it was a hotel cleaner from quarantine who'd been out in the community for several days. The Queensland Premier this morning urging National Cabinet to, as one, adopt this national hotspot for Greater Brisbane. There had been some questions about whether it actually met the Commonwealth's definition, but the Prime Minister very clear as he emerged from National Cabinet that even though it didn't meet the old definition, the change in the mutation of this virus means that he is right on board to declare Brisbane as a hotspot.
So the Brisbane hotspot, as we are declaring it at a Commonwealth level, it is different to the normal definition we've applied to hotspots, but you've got to change the rules where you know that there is new information and new uncertainties that are being introduced.
Under Jeanette Young, the Chief Health Officer in Queensland, Queensland has been as sensitive to a single infection as any of the other states. Probably WA beats it, but although we could probably think that this is overkill, one case, 3-day lockdown for Greater Brisbane, it is about the unknown here, what we don't know and how infectious this could be.
There is very clearly advice that has been given to the state and territory leaders from the nation's medical experts that there are so many unknowns with the UK strain that there was nothing that the Queensland Premier could do but lock down for 3 days. The Prime Minister making it clear that they want to use these next 3 days to see what happens if we don't see a spread of COVID as a result of this. We're now being in isolation, and that we'll be hopeful that we can lift these restrictions on Monday. But it's a watch and wait game to see if this virus has in fact spread, and we know that it's much more contagious than the strain that we've seen in Australia so far.
Yes, so the Chief Medical Officer in Canberra on board as well. Now, a range of new rules have come into force about departures of overseas travellers and then getting them to Australia into hotel quarantine, but in particular, this no test, no fly rule. What's that entail?
There had been an ad hoc basis of if some airlines said you must prove you could test negative to COVID-19 before boarding, but now National Cabinet has agreed any international arrival into Australia, before they can even get on board that flight here, must prove that they can test negative to COVID-19. There's still a lot of details and logistics to be worked out here to ensure this can take place, because these tests have to take place obviously in other jurisdictions, so we have little power to make this happen. The details to be revealed in the next week or so.
OK, and quarantine caps will be introduced too?
Yeah, well, they're going to be slashing the number of people who can fly back into Australia every week. We know the Prime Minister and the New South Wales Premier leading the charge in the last few months, saying that quarantine needed to be expanded. But today, for at least the next month or so, New South Wales, WA and Queensland all halving their capacity. So if you're stuck overseas trying to get home, that task only now getting much harder.
So do you get the impression from what you heard today from the CMO and the PM that we could be in and out of short lockdowns because of this new strain in 2021?
That is certainly the feeling. The Prime Minister asked specifically today if we saw one case in a city of this UK strain, will that therefore mean we all go into lockdown and shut up the borders? And he basically said yes, that we need to watch and wait, that 2021 is going to be a very different year than some had hoped, that we'd go to some sort of normality, Chris, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. Restrictions imposed on life to come for this year.
The pandemic changing daily from what we've seen today.